All right, Rabbi. Rabbi's on, Mom.
Hot dinner. Read the chair. Get out. Get out. One.
Oh, can you hear me okay? My mic was muted.
There you are, Rabbi. Hi.
Yeah, hi, my mic was muted, so I figured since the weather wasn't good, I'm gonna see fireworks in Hartford, but it didn't look like a good day, so.
Yeah. You say hi?
We'll study inside. Hey, how you doing?
You doing good?
You're practicing some instruments over there in the house?
Oh, it's going to get something to show you. I have no idea.
I gotta give you the list of songs for the bonfire, so yeah. Maybe you can play some of them. Yeah. Oh, what do you have there? Oh, what is that?
It's a glow stick. Since it's dark and stormy out, I figured I'd give them glow sticks and it might make it a little brighter.
Glow stick. Yeah. Nice. Okay, so you're on, Marcy's on. See who else is coming on today. I have no idea who's coming. I didn't ask for RSVP. So we're on page 186. We're talking about sacrifices and the prayers that took place in them. So they were daily activities of the priests in the temple. The Gemara quotes a Mishnah where they speak about the blessings that are recited by the priests along with the morning Shema. Okay, so the priests used to recite blessings with the sacrifices. We learned in the Mishnah in Tamid 5:1. It says that the appointed one, that is the deputy Kohen Gadol, the deputy, so it wasn't the Kohen Gadol. So the Kohen Gadol was appointed to stand in place of the Kohen Gadol. The Kohen Gadol is disqualified. Others explain that the appointed one mentioned here is not the Skan, but simply a Kohen who is designated to say statements that follow the other priests. So we're talking about what they would say here. They would say to the Kohanim, to the priests, say one blessing of the two blessings before the Shema. So it's a dispute whether it's the Yotzer or the secondary blessing, which you recite, which is Ahava Rabbah. Right? That's in our service. Ahava Rabbah. Okay, they would say the blessing. He would then say, read the 10 Commandments. So, what was done there? These commandments were recited along with the Shema in the temple because they are the foundation of our faith. And it says here that all 613 commandments add up to 10. So it's funny because you add 6, 1, and 3, you come up with 10. So 6, 1, and 3 adds 10, and all 613, they say, are embedded in those 613 commandments. So that was note 17. Shema, V'hayim Shema, and Vayomer, those are the 3 passages that form the Shema. They would do so. They would say along with the people the following 3 blessings. Emet V'yatziv, which we have in our prayer book, that follows the Shema. Blessing of avodah service to the Beit HaMikdash. They recite the Shema. At this time, even though it was still too early to fulfill the mitzvah, they were still doing it, even though it wasn't in the right time. And
Rabbi, can you explain that part? It's too early to properly fulfill the mitzvah.
yeah, it has to be, the Shema has to be recited in the morning at the proper time. It can't be too early. So the first morning Shema has to be recited there's a schedule, Dan, on the computer. It says when the time for the Shema to be recited.
So there's an actual time of day. It's not just when you happen to wake up or before you go to bed. It's like a specific time of the day.
It has to be light outside.
Okay.
Yeah. So if it's not yet morning, you can't really recite the Shema and get credit for it. You can recite it, but if you want to get the credit. So the credit for the Shema there has to be in the right time. So otherwise, you could say it, but you're not going to get the credit that goes with it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does now. I don't think I had realized that it has to be that the credit actually happens at the proper time of day. So
See, the nighttime Shema is okay. You could say that before you go to bed.
but yeah, and basically as long as you're doing it as the last thing you do before you go to sleep is
Because it says "V'shoftecha u'v'kumecha." When you get up and when you lie down is when you say the Shema. Right? We have that in the prayer. "U'v'shoftecha u'v'kumecha." When you get up in the morning and when you go down at night to sleep.
Thank you.
Okay, they would then say along with the people the following 3 blessings. Met V'yatziv, which is after the Shema. Avodah, which is the service of the Beit Mikdash. This is in the prayer book would say. So when we say our Shemona Esrei, this is the 17th blessing. It's a request to God to accept the avodah, the work. The blessing is would say, and they explained that the Kohanim recite these prayers before burning the tamid, before burning the sacrifice and the daily incense offering, asking that these offerings be accepted. So this was said. It's a powerful. A lot of our prayers are powerful, but they're saying this one is powerful too. And 3, the Birkas HaKohanim, which 3 verses, which we have, for the priestly blessing. It was a special platform. That's why it's called duchening in Yiddish. They used to do it from a special platform called a dufan in the temple. The Kohanim would raise their hands and say the blessing. Well, although the Kohanim recite the blessing, they didn't recite the remainder of the Shemona Esrei. Since they were careful to perform the mitzvah, they were in a rush to complete the avodah. So we don't have a Kohen in the synagogue to do the blessing on holidays, do the priestly blessing. I don't qualify because my mother was a Kohen and your father has to be a Kohen. So I don't qualify to do, or otherwise I do the blessings on the holidays that we have it. In Israel, because it's holy, you can do it every day. The Sfarim do it every day. Here we do it on holidays. That's the Ashkenazi custom. Sephardim sometimes do it every day also in Brooklyn and places where a lot of Sephardim. Because it's powerful. And on Shabbos, would add one more blessing by the outgoing Mishmar. Kohanim were divided. Okay, this is important. There were 24 different watches that they had. The priests were. Each one would serve in the temple for 2 periods of 1 week each. Every Shabbos that they would change, with the outgoing Mishmar offering the morning Tamid and Musaf offering, and incoming the Tamid afternoon, and the 2 spoons of Lavona, which were different types of spices. So there's different watches. We studied this. I don't know, none of you were on when we studied brachot, but this was a big part of brachot about the people that served on the Mishmar, the watches. Make sure everything was okay. The Gemara cites below will bring the wording of the blessing. 187. The Gemara discusses the matter of reading the 10 Commandments. You know what? Some people still, I know, read the 10 Commandments. Some people do it with the Shema as well. We don't. I don't know many people that do, but some people I know have done it actually. The master said they read the 10 Commandments. Rabbi said, name of Shmuel, the sages wanted the people to read the 10 Commandments this manner, even in the provinces, even outside the temple, but they have already abolished reading them. Earlier sages abolished it. Earlier times in Israel, to read the 10 Commandments before the Shema. The custom was abolished. Okay, so we're going to see the reason why. So it used to be the Shema and the 10 Commandments. We'll get to know and see why we did away with it. Because of the murmuring of the non-believers. So non-believers would attempt to convince learned people that the 10 Commandments are read along the Shema because and no other part of the Torah were given its sign out. So that's why we stopped. So the Gemara supports it. So the Gemara is going to try to find proof of this. It's taught in Brisa. Rav Nassan said they wanted the people to read the 10 Commandments in the manner, even in the provinces, but they already abolished the reading because the murmuring. So here we go. There's murmuring of non-believers, and it causes problems. So people might think the wrong thing. The Gemara brings another instance. Rabbi Barakana wanted the 10 Commandments along with the Shema in Surah, which was a city in modern day Iraq, Babylonian back then. Rav Krista said to him, they have abolished reading them because of the murmuring. Similar incident. And Amemar, he was a great sage, he wanted to institute reading the commandments along with the Shema in Nahardiyah, which was a great Talmudic academy, also in Babylonia. Avashi said, he already abolished reading them because of the murmuring of the non-believers. Gemara quotes further Mishnah and Talmud that says, and on Shabbos they would add one blessing to be said by the outgoing Mishmar. Those were the groups, the watchers. Gemara explains, what was the one blessing they added? Kabbalah said the outgoing Mishmar would say to the incoming Mishmar, may the one who caused his name to dwell in the house cause to dwell among you love, brother, peace, and friendship. Inside A. Anyone want to read Inside A? It goes from 187 to 188.
I can do it.
Okay, thanks. Yeah.
Inside A, peace and divine presence. As the outgoing watch completed its week-long stint in the Beis HaMikdash, it would offer a blessing to the incoming watch. May he cause to dwell among you love, brotherhood, peace, and friendship. But why this blessing? A more timely blessing, it would seem, would wish the success in performing their priestly duties for the next week. Yes, that would be an appropriate way to frame their blessing, but that is exactly what they were doing. As some commenters explain, the essential duty of the Kohanim was to maintain the Beis HaMikdash as a resting place for the Shekinah.
Yeah, God's presence, yeah.
Okay, the Shekinah that required them, of course, to carry out the sacrificial service as prescribed in the Torah. But even more important was the need to cultivate peaceful relations among themselves. For unity among the Jews, the most basic condition for the Shekinah's presence in the Beis Hamikdash. Not only is it the more basic condition, but it is also the more difficult condition to fulfill, for it is often a great challenge to adapt to and harmonize with the widely varying natures of other people. Divine assistance is often needed to, this is so true. Divine assistance is often needed for success in this endeavor, and the outgoing watch could have offered no more appropriate blessing than for their successors should merit such assistance from above. According to Hassam Sofar,
Yeah, he was a great commentator.
okay, I haven't read about him yet in the literacy book.
Yeah, he's not a major player that would have a chapter written about him.
Oh, okay. The scope of this blessing is broader than it appears, for the intention is that one Shalom, peace, takes hold among the Kohanim. It will spread to the rest of the nation, bringing all factions together in one harmonious brotherhood. This is in keeping with the Gemara's statement at the end of this tractate, that the Torah scholars, who the Kohanim are likely to be, promote the cause of Shalom in the world. Another question arises regarding our passage. Since the Gemara lists this blessing among the blessings recited during the prayer service, it implies that it should be formulated as a halachial, is that right?
Yeah.
Halachial valid blessing. But
That's
the form
from the word halakha, law.
Okay. But the formula provided does not meet this standard. For the halaic blessing must invoke the name of Hashem, in addition referred to him as the king of the world. Imri Ez of Gur, in a printed excerpt from his Savah, Ethical Will, answers this question homiletically. Since the blessing calls for peace among Jews, it implies the name of Hashem, for Jewish unity is a key to the revelation of Hashem's name. Similarly, the blessing by implication refers to Hashem's role as king of the world, for his execution of that role depends on Jewish unity as well. This idea is based on a biblical verse. He became king over Yeshurun, but not just any time, only when the numbers of the nation gathered, the tribes of Israel in unity. Deuteronomy 33:5. As Rashi there explains, God is our king in the fullest sense, only when the different factions among us band together in unity and peace.
You know, with what's going on in the world, I was talking to some people today. That's something welcome Sharon.
Hi, everyone.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what? We got to promote peace in the world. You know, it's sad for me as a religious leader to see. I mean, I see in Israel what's going on. It's just, I mean, I don't know if you know that, Sharon, but there were terrorists rammed into 8 people in Tel Aviv at 1 o'clock our time this afternoon. Someone was shot, stabbed to death in Petah Tikva yesterday. Yeah, week and a half ago on the West Bank, Israelis were executed. And in Jenin, of course, and Palestinian terrorists, you know, we killed 8, Israeli forces killed 8. And even, you know, Sharon, I was talking to someone today, and even in the US, I mean, look what happened in this last week in Fort Worth, Baltimore, and Philadelphia. Sharon, how do you explain why so many killings, there's so many mass shootings in cities across the US? I thought Israel is bad, but here sometimes it's worse.
I don't think there's an answer. And I think that, unfortunately, the people that are doing the killing have parents. And I truly believe that whoever their parents are, because these people that are doing the killings were born to a mother and a father.
Exactly, yes.
Whatever their rearing was growing up, I know that when I was growing up, my father was somewhat, I'm not going to say that he was a racist. He was nothing like that, but he used to speak about non-Jews and about Black people. And two of their closest friends were Catholic. It was a Catholic couple, but they didn't want to socialize with them in public. So I basically grew up in that type of a setting. But when I went off to college and I met non-Jewish people, and I had a non-Jewish high school boyfriend that I loved dearly. So with me, it started young, that I started branching out and learning about other people's religions. But not everybody does that. Some kids just grow up in that type of household, and that's what they carry with them. And they truly believe that. And they grow up to be angry adults and they go out killing. I don't know why else these people would do this kind of thing. They don't just think it on their own. They're bred through their lifetime. And it's a horrible, horrible, horrible thing to think about. But there's lots of kids out there who are born out of hatred. Lots. And this is what they grow up to be. They grow up to be adults who hate.
Yeah, but Sharon, I can understand terrorists in Palestinian refugee camps. I can understand where you don't have a future. But, you don't have a future. You think you don't have a future. You're taught as a kid to kill the enemy. That's all you really know. And, it's in school, they promote that. But here in this country, since when, Dan, do we promote hatred and shooting up people when you just have a break from reality? Why all of a sudden here?
All over the world.
Yeah.
But
And
America's not immune to it. Just as we're in America.
Right. It may not be right there in front of your face, right? You might not be sitting in school and they're saying, this is what you're going to do and you're going to hate people. But there's that air when people are talking about others. And there's this non-accepting factor of they don't know how, they don't have what we have, or they're not as good as we are. And why should we listen to anybody else? When there's that air, it's subconsciously just flowing into your mind. Don't accept. And there's always going to be walls and differences between all these different people, instead of we're all people. We all have these same human rights and we all deserve to do things and be better and make things better. And that's the other thing. If people aren't growing up in families where their families are promoting, how can we build things? How can we make things better? How can we bring joy and happiness into other people's lives, as opposed to, what do I get? It's about me. I need to get this. And people aren't giving it to me. And that closes people off. And then that's where all those walls come from, right? Nope, you didn't give me what I wanted and I haven't gotten it from this person. So I'm going to hold it against this person going forward because I might get hurt. And all these walls go up, and that's where the hatred builds, and it builds and it builds and it builds until one day, they may not be at a full loss for life, right? They might not be on death's door or something like that, but they may have lost their whole sense of reality and what the world should be. And that's where they make the real wrong decision, the big wrong decision. Because
they lose their whole identity, don't you think, Dean? They lose who they are.
Yeah, they come up with this fake one, right? This, I'm a hurt victim person and I haven't been treated justly. So I need to go out there and make sure somebody pays for it. When in reality, there's plenty of things that they have, and there's plenty of other things that they could do for others, and they would reap tenfold the benefits if they were willing to make that step.
When I was growing up, when I was 16 or 15, I met a young boy and we started dating, and he wasn't Jewish. What do you think my father did? My father stalked me. He stalked me. Yes. Every place I went, when I got my license, I was always looking over my shoulder to see if my dad was following me, and he would follow me.
Oh, yeah, I remember you telling me this. Yeah.
And it was like, why? what difference does it make if I'm dating a non-Jewish boy? What difference does it make? You know,
But-
he wasn't even trusting me to make the decision for myself. How do I feel about this?
So is
So
that related to,
It was the weirdest thing.
to the fact that, their closest friends might have been Catholics, but they wouldn't go out in public because of how it looked? And if,
Exactly. Norwich was a very, very close-knit community, just
Oh,
like
yeah?
Chester. Oh my God. We were such a close Jewish community on the west side when we had our first synagogue and first Talmud Torah, which Deanne was our Hebrew school and our social
That was Brothers of Joseph, right?
Brothers of Joseph. Very, very close-knit community. And truthfully, even in school, I didn't have non-Jewish friends. I was only introduced,
Hmm,
and even on our street, we had 1, 2, 3 non-Jewish families. Everybody else was Jewish. And boy, we knew who those 3 non-Jewish families were.
but you didn't interact?
No. I interacted with one family who had 2 daughters. Joyce and Lynn Marino lived kitty corner to us. But the other 2 families, I didn't even know who they were.
Did they,
I
do you
knew
think
their
they felt,
names.
do you think they felt like shunned by you guys?
Nope.
That's good.
No, it was just, I look back on it now and I think, boy, that was really odd. When I started dating Tom, my mother stopped talking to me for 6 months.
I can imagine. Yeah, I know that mindset. Yeah.
She stopped talking to me. And that was it, and then I ended up in the hospital with a stomach condition. And my mother never even came to visit me in the hospital, neither did my father.
Really? Because
only
of the
person who
things
came
that
to
Tom
see-
treated? Oh, man.
The only person, I was in Lawrence Memorial, and the only person who came to see me was Tom. And
Really?
my
Family
coworker, my
deserted.
dental office. No family. No. And then my brother started dating a Catholic girl, and all of a sudden my mother had no choice but to start talking to me because she couldn't bear the thought of not talking to my brother.
Oh, is that what happened? Oh.
Imagine. So, I grew up with it. I grew up with that. And, my parents didn't say to me, just date whoever you want and just be happy.
Oh, my parents didn't say that either, but I don't think it was a matter of religion. They were like, it better be a smart kid.
Oh, is that what they thought? Ah.
Yeah, I put them through the paces though. There were some not very bright bulbs that I dated, so.
You know what?
I was told a nice, rich Jewish doctor. And at my father's funeral, Rabbi will tell you, I when I was talking about my dad, I said, Dad, I got 3 out of 4.
Yeah. Hey, Marion. Yeah, I remember that funeral. Yeah. But you know what? In my neighborhood, there wasn't anyone non-Jewish, so there was no one. Everyone was Jewish, so we didn't have one non-Jewish family in the whole area. It was like it was a Jewish shtetl sort of, so they didn't have any options. You know what? I was always wondered. People said you went to yeshiva your whole life and you lived in a shtetl. Like, what's going to happen when you get to college and you have non-Jewish people? So that's a good question. I don't know how I'm going to deal with it. So what they do? They build Kosher King in my accounting classes, right in the basement. They build Kosher King, so all the Jews hang out there in Kosher King.
Yeah, it's
I think it's to this very day. I think that kosher hamburger place is still in Brooklyn College, I think. Yeah. But you know what? I did make a few non-Jewish, but it was weird. The first time I made a non-Jewish friend in Brooklyn College, it was so weird because my whole life, all the guys I know are from the yeshiva or from the summer camp.
Did
But
they ask you lots of questions? Like about
yeah,
your religion?
yeah. Like, what do you want to be a rabbi? No, No,
You
but
wanted to be a rabbi back then too?
no. I'm just kidding. I just wanted to be a rock guitarist. Because the non-Jews I knew were good guitarists. Anyway, that's Jews in those days weren't playing much guitar, except for the Jewish great folk rock scene in Long Island, where the whole folk rock started, and that type of stuff. But other than that, but to me, guys, I don't know how you feel, Deanne, about converting to our religion when you see all this hatred in the world, and you see, especially we talk about going to Israel, I just look at my phone, all of a sudden I see people dead in Israel. I mean, I can understand what you guys were worried about. Marcy and I were in Israel. You never know what's going to happen. All of a sudden, a guy rams into 8 people in Tel Aviv. Marcy and I were just there. I was trying to stay off of the boardwalk, and where I thought there might be some problems there, but who knew? Who knew that people would ram their vehicle right into people? I mean, it's just.
Well, I think you knew deep down that it could happen because you've been reading about it for years, for decades, but to actually be there, that's a whole different story. But you read about it, but it's so far away that you don't connect with it like you do if you were right at that market the day before and then the next day.
Yeah.
It's kind of like when I was out at the Grand Canyon in 1980 and we took a Cessna through the Grand Canyon. It was a beautiful
Oh, that's a great thing.
Yeah. It was wonderful. 1 week later, it was on a Monday. 1 week later, there were 7 Norwegians that went down.
Oh, right, I remember that.
Plane that we had been flying through the canyon. So even though you read in the paper that these things happen, I read that article and said, I was in that plane.
I never ever wanted to go do that. I always wanted to. After I read about that accident, Sharon, I never wanted to do it. Never.
But it's no different than what you experienced in Israel. You've read that people drive into marketplaces.
Right. It was right before.
It's 6,000 miles away or 3,000 miles away. But when you're right there, that's a whole different ballgame. That it's sort of like when you read something, even if you're reading a book, reading about the Titanic, it happened. But man, if you're right there, or those poor people that went down in that little submersible.
Oh yeah, the submersible.
All of a sudden it comes home like, wow, this is real. Yeah.
You know what? I just can't believe that submiss. I mean, it's just like every day there seems to be something. I'm afraid to turn the news on. It's always something like shootings in Hartford. I mean, should I get immune to every day I turn on the news? There's always shootings in Hartford every day.
I never go to North Hartford ever. I never.
I mean, is it that bad? Is that bad in Hartford? Every day there's more shootings. Every day someone's killed.
Well, and that's the other thing that I have been thinking while you guys have been talking is when we plan on going places, we are very, very meticulous on the paths that we take and the times that we travel through there, because like you said, in Hartford, there's always shootings and you can pretty much tell the majority of the time what time of day or night they're going to be happening, right? So we avoid it like the plague. And the same thing, like when we took our trip down south, there were certain areas and avenues we would not go through.
Oh, really?
Because we know the drive is going to be reckless. There's going to be too many reckless drivers on the road, and we're not going to risk these lives, right? So I think that even when planning the trip to Israel, there would be a lot of questions and caution on where we went and what we went to go see and what time, the timing. Is it going to be like high traffic and high population time and stuff like that? Because we always plan to do everything on an early Tuesday morning because that's usually when everybody's working, so we avoid those questionable and at times of interaction. So, I mean, and I think about like, so just like you say, Rabbi, I see something almost every day about people in Texas. There's a shooting, or there was like some crazy accident, crash, or whatever, some kind of a riot or stuff like that. I have no desire to go there. For me, it just seems too hot territory, like just people with no concern for anybody else in the world.
Yeah. But well, Dan, you go to University of Hartford. I mean,
Well, I do my stuff online.
Yeah, but I'm just saying it's beautiful. Some parts of it are really. What can people do to stop? I mean, what does it take to stop shootings in Hartford every night? It's unbelievable.
It's not going to happen in a short amount of time. It's going to happen in a long amount of time, and it takes.
You know what'll stop it is putting a ban on guns.
It takes people coming together to say that they want to change, and that's got to include more enforcement of things, right? So there need to be more people out there willing to say, we're going to take a stand and we want this place to be safe. So I'll stand to watch. And I'll say something if something happens. But right now, especially in that area, that's not people's mindset. It's shut your mouth, and if you see something that looks shady, walk the other way and let it happen. It's not take a stand, and you want this place to be better. We want to make the place better, not just walk away and maybe it'll survive, maybe not, there's no tikkun olam there. So people just avoid things, and they're like, somebody else will handle it. And that's how it turns into garbage.
So you don't have to go to Hartford too much, Dan, because of your online program?
Mm-hmm. I have a friend who lives in West Hartford, so every once in a while we get together, but usually we plan that pretty well. So that way we don't have to worry about, like, we wouldn't do it on the 4th of July weekend. We would wait until a regular weekend where maybe nothing's going on, and try hours around that.
You know what? I'm so glad I don't live in a big city. People said you're living in farmland. I said, I don't care now. I mean, I'm glad I don't live in a big city. I can't tell you, we're living in New York City, walked around places and, it seemed dangerous at night. You never know these people in the street. I don't know who they were, walking at night in 110th Street, whatever, or down in Greenwich Village. I don't know.
Yeah, I went to school when I went for my undergraduate degree. I was in Willimantic at the campus, and I was so naive. I'm from Rhode Island, right? Everything is small and tiny, and if something happens, everybody who it happened to anyways. And then I went to Willimantic, and people were like, really? You're in Willimantic? And then we found out it was the cocaine capital of the world. And I was like,
you didn't know that? Oh, you didn't know.
No idea. Like, no idea until end of sophomore year. And I was like, what?
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And when I was a freshman, I was on the bottom end of campus, which was the closest you could get to being in that dangerous mix of stuff. And I saw like the crappy houses that were there, and I just figured, whatever, they're rundown houses that they probably can't get people to rent. No, there's people in there, but they're all doing not so great things. So I was fortunate to not have been involved with anything. Nobody ever broke into anything that I had, but again, the campus kind of bands together and says, we're going to keep this area safe, so.
I lived in Romantic from 1977 to 80, right on Walnut Street. So I was right in the thick of those houses.
Yeah.
And I did not know it was the cocaine capital.
How is it now? I'm just curious. How is it now?
From what
Willimantic?
I've heard, it's gotten a little bit better, but I still don't know. I wasn't there at like the complete high of it, but there was the whole movie that was made about one of the apartment buildings that was just a couple blocks away from where my dorm was, and they were constantly in there raiding people, and they were trying to find out who the big cocaine dealers were, so they wouldn't lock everybody up. They'd just go in there, take the stuff, and then kind of let them off the hook. Yeah, it was crazy. And I was like, what?
You know when that was? Because I was there from 77 to 80.
I don't know. I'll have to look, but it wasn't too far before I was there. So I was there 2000 to 2004, but it must have been in, I'm guessing it was like high in the 80s and the 90s. So
Okay.
I'll have to
Huh?
think-
So after I left there,
That's,
Yeah, you were there before.
oh my.
yeah, I
God.
went to Eastern. I don't want to tell you how many years ago it was.
Well, obviously I went even earlier than you did. You were just a little babe when I was in college. You weren't even born, Deanne.
Yeah,
God.
Seems like a big difference in Willimantic and Mansfield.
Wow. I'm sure there are areas of Mansfield that are not very well kept. I mean,
Really? In Mansfield?
even around the corner from us on Highland Road, there are
Really? Your area?
there are some, yeah, some not so nice looking homes that are run down, ramshackled.
Oh, really? I don't remember seeing around your area. then.
Oh, yeah. Next time you come up around this area, if you come up Pleasant Valley Road to Woods Road to Highland Road, that first area of houses that were built like early in the 50s, it's a lot of houses that are very run down and they don't keep the yard nice. The houses, they have junkyards, they have junk in the yard and junk on the side of the yard and stuff. And I think there might be some rentals, where UConn students or Eastern students, they rent these houses and they just ramshackle them. So,
Wow.
yeah. I mean, here on Stone Ridge Lane, you wouldn't think. And then it's really weird because if you go down our street and take a right, those houses are only 5 years older than our houses. So there's nothing ramshackled. If you go to the right, it looks like, wow, this is a really beautiful neighborhood. And when Tom and I first moved here, we used to tell people, we used to give them directions, and we would give them directions to come up Stearns Road and come up Highland Road that way. So they wouldn't
Really?
buy the other houses.
Oh,
But yeah, I'm sure that there's some drug stuff going on. I'm sure of it.
In Mansfield? Wow.
well,
Yeah.
yeah, you got all the college kids.
Exactly.
Well, from UConn, you got quite a few.
Yes,
We're worried now because the people that are kitty corner to us across the street, just the wife just passed away, and the husband, she was in her 90s, but the house is empty now and we don't know what's going to happen with it. One of my neighbors actually wants to buy it and rent it out and he's a retired policeman, so that he can interview the people that would want to rent. And we can keep our Stone Ridge Lane just, so that it doesn't fall apart with college students that wouldn't take care of the house. A lot of people that rent, they don't treat their house as if it was their own, or maybe they do treat it as their own and they didn't come from very good housing.
hmm.
But there's usually the rentals, they leave it a mess. It's really sad because when I was renting from 77 to 80, I made sure that it was a duplex. So the other side of the building, I didn't know what was happening, but I made sure that our side of the house was immaculate because I treated it like it was my own. But that's normally not how rentals work.
No.
And it's not students, it's not limited to students.
That's
There
true.
are
I've seen
families that
yeah.
move in.
Yeah,
And
I've seen
because they're
some of the
renting. Yeah, so.
And those are people who get that same sort of upbringing of it's a rental. So you treat it
No, you don't have to care about
or
it.
it's not my job to take care of this. It's just my job to live here. But they're taught that sort of mindset. And that's where, again, it's a wrong turn down the path for me. Like, no, you got to treat everything with respect. Everything. So
But I still think it comes from parenting. It comes from how you, like Deanne, you shared with me that you were so worried when your children go out in the world that they're gonna, be subject to other people and other things that are foreign to them, because that's not the kind of household they grew up in. But you always want to think that your children will carry on the traditions, the morals, the attitude, whatever house they grew up in a really, really good environment, that they'll carry that through with them.
mhm,
And maybe even have a positive effect on someone who grew up in a negative household.
mhm. Yeah, I mean, that's definitely what we hope. So like when we went on our trip, it was very heartwarming to hear William say he wanted to come back to our house. Or if we go grocery
Oh,
shop,
wow.
they get really excited right before we turn back down our driveway to come home. I go, hey, this looks like a nice driveway. Let's go down and see what's down it. And they go, okay, Mom, let's go. Oh, wow, look at all these trees. And then they go, I think I see something. It's a white house. Let's go see. Let's go check it out. And they get excited just to come home. Not like, oh man, we're coming home and now there's going to be nothing to do. We'll be bored. They're excited to come home and just be home, be in my place, right? And I'm like, yay, this is hopefully like sinking in deep. So that way they remember that feeling and it sticks with them when they get somewhere else and they start experiencing freedom and independence, and that's all fun, but it still doesn't give me that home comfort feeling that they're hopefully getting now. That's my hope and prayer.
This is going to seem really, really kind of weird and out there, but when we take Ben somewhere and we drive in the driveway, he starts perking up and he starts looking out the window, and we come into the garage and he's ready to come out of the car. He knows he's home.
That's in the dogs.
His mom follows, and she's all perky. It's like,
Now, our dogs will do that too when we travel with them. Murphy won't go poop anywhere other than our yard. She'll hold on to it for days. And I'm like, the dog's gonna pop.
Oh my
She gets home,
God.
she's like, I'm
Oh
ready.
my
This
God.
is nice.
thank you for sharing, Deanne.
I know, a little over far, but
I can't believe that. Oh my God.
It's
Ooh.
nice to come home.
Mhm.
So I
It's
wonder
nice
if we're
to
gonna
see
have
what-
anyone join us for Talmud. They're late.
They
I don't-
probably think we're not having it.
I said to everyone we are having it, and I sent a weekly that said here's no exception. So everyone knows, but people aren't here, I guess.
I'll go get Scott. I'll be right back.
I
Okay.
have to go get my new book anyway and open
Oh,
it.
the new book, Sharon.
Today, the first day for the new book?
Last week was it?
I gotta get it out of my box.
The new book.
Hi.
There we are. Hey Scott, how you doing?
All right, how are you, Rabbi? Hey, Sharon.
Good.
Hi, Scott.
Hey,
Right out of
cleaning
the
up.
box. Since I don't do anything ahead.
This is the first time I'm opening it.
Let's hope it's the
83,
right
80.
book.
83B3. I think that's where we stop.
Number
Oh, so
43.
maggots or worms.
83 what?
Scott, right? 83B3 I have?
Yep. Yeah, we're at the top of the paragraph on the right side of the page.
83
Oh, this is
B.
great. We're talking about fats that are burning. Not an easy topic.
Talking about what?
Fats. Baskets of fat. It's not a pleasant thing. Okay, the Gemara interrupts question boy. What does it prove? All fats do not rot as well. It's talking about fat here. My
Where-
answer is,
What is 83B1?
yeah, 83B3.
B3.
Okay, so Gemara says it's true that all fats do not rot, but it says here, it says Shurakya Sumaki Masriya, sanguineous membranes do rot. Haka Af Algav the Iga Shurakya Sumaki. Here indicates even though sanguineous membranes were present in the fat, Lo Masriya is nevertheless did not rot. The Gemara says, Kare an Nafshe, the son of the Elazar, the son of Shimon, quotes, he says about himself, Ach Besari Yishkon Laveta, famous verse. Even my flesh will rest securely. Well, I'll read the last note. So it says in Psalms, he was somewhat reassured that he was blameless. However, he wasn't entirely reassured. Gemara continues in narrative stating that his conscience was not completely settled. And so too Rav Shmuel, Yishmael, the son of Yosef, who once came, next page, Ki hai masiliyade, his way is similar experience. That is, the king appointed him. Okay, they said the king said, "You're a marshal," and he was obligated to arrest thieves and highwaymen. Said, "This is your job. You have to arrest these people." Paga be Eliyahu, Elijah. Guess who he found? Elijah the prophet. Pagat. He encountered him. Amalek said to him, Ad matai ata moser amoshel Eloheinu lahariga. Until when will you hand over the people of our God to their execution? Shmuel said to the Rabbi, son of Yosef, replied to him, My Avid, what can I do? Armana de Malkahu. Armana is the order. It's the order of the king to do this. On note 1. Scott, you want to take over on the first notes on 80, 89, 84, 81?
Yep. This is the same response as that given by the original marshal above, who might also have been Jewish. Rav Elazar, the son of Rav Shimon, did not, however, respond this way. He said instead, I am ridding the vineyard of its thorns. It is possible that Rav Yishmael, the son of Rav Yosef, and the original marshal were conscripted against their will, and thus could justify their actions. Rav Elazar, the son of Rav Shimon, on the other hand, was appointed through the counsel he gave the original marshal, and he thus brought the appointment upon himself.
Okay. Continuing. Amalek, Elijah said, Avuk Arak Lasya. Your father fled to Asya. At Arok Lutkaya. You should flee to Lutkia. Okay, I don't know where these places. Do you know where these places are? Lutkia. I don't know.
You think Asia might be today's Asia?
I don't know. I don't think so. It's definitely a distance though. Scott, is there a note here that says where it is?
Not yet. I don't think they're going to tell us.
I'll look it up.
Ludkia. I don't know if I guess it's in somewhere in the vicinity. Ludkia. Okay. Okay. Okay, so I assume it's like a little distance away. The Gemara digresses to discuss Elazar, the son of Shimon, and Ishmael, the son of Hosea. Yosef. Kihu Miklei, Rav Yishmael, Rabbi Yosef, Rav Elazar, Rav Shimon, Bahade Hadade. When Yishmael wouldn't count it, the son of Yosef, the son of Shimon would encounter each other. When these people, they faced each other, what happened? And they stood face to face with their midriffs touching. Right. Hava Ayil Bakra de Torre Beineu. A pair of cattle could pass between them, under them. Below Hava Nagabu, and not even touch him. Amrulhu Ahi Matro Nita. Certain nobleman once told them, Benechem Einam Shalachem. Your children aren't yours. Why? You're both so obese, impossible for you to have relations with your wives. Saying it's impossible. Number 2, Scott, what does that mean?
Therefore, your wives must have conceived from others, and their children are mamzerim.
Bastards. That's not good.
Rabbi, I looked it up online. It says your father fled to Asia. You should flee to Laodicea rather than accept his appointment. So apparently Lutkia is short for Laodicea, and Asia is short for Asia.
Oh, it is? Okay.
Yeah.
Where'd you find that?
I found it online in Bava Metzia 84a, Safaria.
Oh, Safari had the answer to that? Okay. Okay, good.
Didn't mean to interrupt you, Scott.
Oh, no, I'm glad you told me that. I didn't know where it was. Okay. Amrullah, they said to her, Shalahen Gadol Mishalenu. Their stomachs are bigger than ours. Toshikain then, nobleman responded, what I said is true, all the more so. Ika da Amre Hachi Amrullahu. 2 traditions are how they answered the point. Some say this is what they told her. Ki Kaish Gvurato, for as a man is, so is his might. Number 3, Judges. Scott, you're muted. You're muted.
How's that?
Yeah, better.
Judges 8:21. Thus, if he is huge, his member is huge as well in proportion to his size.
Look at this discussion. Ay vey. It's kind of crazy, right? Today. Ika da Amre Hachi Amrulat. Some say they said this is what they told her. Ahava docheket et basar. I like this better. Love drives back the flesh.
Rashi cites an alternative explanation of this passage. The noblewomen suggest that they are too obese to have relations with their wives, and thus their wives must have committed adultery. They respond that their wives' desire is greater than theirs. The noblewoman remarks that, if so, they must have certainly sought adulterous unions in order to satisfy this desire. They reply that their desire makes for a love before which no amount of flesh is a barrier.
Boy, this is so. I don't remember these parts of the Talmud. Maybe they were banned when I was younger. The Gemara questions their remarks. It says, "V'lama lahu la durele." Did they answer at all? They should have. So they just ignored her, right? Ignore her. V'haktiv, for it is written.
Proverbs 26:4.
King Solomon said this. Altan kasil balvato. What did he say? He says, do not answer a fool according to his folly. Gemara answers this. Shalom lahotzi la'az al b'neihem. They responded to her foolish statement so as not to create rumors about their children.
She had asserted that the children must be mamzerim.
Bastards, which you got to be careful when you call children bastards. The Gemara compares various sages. Amar Yochanan. Yochanan said this. Varda Rav Yishmael, the son of Yossi's organ, Gechemet Bad Tesha Kabin, was the size of a 9-kav canteen. Amar of Papa. Papa said, Ikre the Rabbi Yochanan's organ, the Chemet Bad Chameshet Kabin, is the size of a 5-kav canteen. Amalek, some say it was the size of Bat Shloshet Kabin, 3-kav canteen. The Rav Papa Gufa, that of Rav Papa himself, the Dikure the Harpanai, was the size of Harpinian baskets.
Are we to assume what this particular organ is?
Yes, unfortunately.
Yes,
Can't believe this is in the Talmud.
I don't believe it either, Sharon.
A Harpinian basket holds 6 calves based on Shabbos and Tosafos. However, see Takanos Hashavin. Tosafos state that these comments are made by the Gemara to explain how exceedingly obese men, such as the aforementioned sages, could father children, so as to dispel any doubts concerning the genealogical fitness of their children. Chochmas Shlomo, however, suggests that the size of these sages' organs are to be taken allegorically as representing the sizes of their desire for intimate relations. The point being that though they were possessed of great desire, the greater a man, the greater his inclination to sin, they overcame it. See also Maharal and Rav Tzadok, who offer esoteric interpretations here. See also Ritva and Tosfos, Rabbeinu Peretz, who interpret this passage differently.
Fascinating, isn't it? Gemara turns to a discussion of beauty now. Okay.
God.
The beauty. I remain from the beautiful people of the holy city of Jerusalem. Gemara discusses of Yochanan's beauty. Okay, what about his beauty?
His radiant form and shining countenance.
Nice to have that. Haiman Devai Mechse. He who wishes to witness what? Shupre. Rabbi Yochanan. If you want to see the radiance of Yochanan, go do the following. Naite Kasa the Kaspa Mibe Silke. Okay, bring a silver goblet fresh from the smithy.
That is directly from the silversmith's furnace, while it still has its fire-fed luster.
Oh God, this is too much. Unamaye partida de rumana sukama. Fill it with the seed of a red pomegranate. Frame it, its rim with a crown of red roses. The Nolan Bain Shim Shah Latula. Place it between the sun and the shade. Ahu Zahure. The luster reflects on the surrounding ground. Me'ayin Shufred of Yochanan is a semblance of Yochanan's radiance then. Gemara is saying, what is it about? Aini, is it so that this is the case? Amar, the master said this. Shufred the Rabbi Kahana, radiance of Rav Kahana, another guy. What happened to this? Me'ain Shufred the Rabbi Abahu was a semblance of the radiance of Rav Abahu. Shufred the Rav Abahu, the radiance of Rav Abahu, Me'ain Shufred the Yaakov Avinu. We had this the other day, right? Was a semblance of the radiance of our forefather Jacob. Shufred the Yaakov Avinu, the radiance of forefather Jacob, Me'ain Shufred the Adam Arishon, was a semblance of the radiance of Adam, the first man. Below of Yochanan lo kach hashivle. Yochanan is not enumerated here? My answer is Shani Rav Yochanan. Rav Yochanan is different. Why? The hadrat panim lo hayale. He lacked the distinction of the countenance. He didn't have a beard. Uh-oh, a man without a beard, trouble. Gemara continues to discuss Yochanan. Yochanan hava azil v'yativ ashai tefillah. What happened to Yochanan? He was accustomed to sit next to the entrance, oh my God, of the women's mikveh.
Literally, Rav Yochanan would go and sit by the gates of immersion.
Why? Amar, because he said this. Why did he do it? Kisalka benot Yisrael mitfila mitzvah. When the Jews would emerge from the required immersion, lifgubi. Let them account of me on the way out. Retain an image of me in their minds. Yehi delehu lahu be shapire. Kvate. So they'll have children as beautiful as I. Gemire oraita kavati. And has learned, oh my God, of the Torah as I. 11.
For the thoughts of the parents at the time they unite is a determining factor in the nature of the child conceived. Much as Jacob influenced the traits of the sheep to be born by placing streaked rods before the parent sheep.
Ah, unbelievable. This is an amazing piece of Talmud. Okay, next page. 84A2. Okay, Amru le Rabbanan. Rabbi said to him this, Lo mistafemar meina bisha. Is master not fearful of an evil eye? Number 12. Sharon, you want to handle this one?
Public exhibitions of beauty and other coveted qualities attract the evil eye and the misfortune that accompanies it.
Do you guys believe that actually? That's why some women don't get all dressed up and stuff and makeup and stuff among the Orthodox
That's
world.
what Playboy magazine was for years ago.
Hmm.
Mm,
The Ein Hara, the evil
Yeah.
eye.
Playboy magazine back in the day, or some form of it.
Yeah. Well, I think that's another whole thing about evil eye. I think we'll cover that in a Kabbalah class in the future. I think evil eye is it's something that I think is worth exploring more. I always fascinated by the Ayin Hara. It's it's more of a Sephardic custom than we have. That's why we have the Chamsas, right? Got to battle that evil eye, right? Amalahu Rav Yochanan said, Ana Mizada de Yosef Katani. I come from the seed of Joseph. Delo Shalta Be Enabisha, over whom an evil eye has no power, right? We know that. Dictive, it's written. Where does it say that?
Genesis 49, verse 22.
It says this is actually, there's yeshivas named that in Israel, Porat Yosef. It says, Ben Porat Yosef, Ben Porat Alayayin. This is actually from the Torah. A charming son is Joseph, a charming son to the eye, Alayayin. Amar Rabbi said this, Al Tikri Alayayin, don't say Alayayin, Ella, Olayayin. Olayayin rising over the eye. What's that? 14?
Joseph and his descendants were above the evil eye, as it had no power over them, according to Rashi.
Isn't that amazing? According to Rashi, evil eye never worked in Joseph's case. Yossi Bachanina Mahaka. He said in the scriptural source from here, 15, which is
Genesis 48, verse 16.
the Yigdul Arov. Oh, this is from the beautiful song Hamalach Goloti, which I sang to my kids when they were younger. The angel protects you, and it says the Yigdul Arov Bekervaris. This was the most popular song of the 10 years by Dveikus, the name of the rock group, the folk Jewish group. And it says, and may the day the children of Joseph proliferate abundantly like fish. La rov, the yidgud, the word dog, fish. The care of aris, like fish in the land. My dagim shebayam. Just that's true of fish in the sea. That what? Mayim chasimotam. What happens in there? Water covers them. Ein ayin shaletet b'hem, and thus the eye has no power over them. Afzaro shel Yosef. So too it is true regarding the progeny of Joseph. Ein ayin shaletet b'hem. Evil eye has no power against them. What is that, Sharon? You have a long 16.
Simple meaning of this exposition is that just as the eye has no power to see fish, which are in the sea, so the evil eye has no power against the progeny of Joseph. See, however, Toras Chaim, who interprets this to mean that the evil eye has no power against fish. That is, the water acts as a barrier to protect the fish from the harmful effects that emanate from the evil eye. Maharal, understands the evil eye to be a destructive force of nature, albeit spiritual rather than physical. See Chidushe Agados here and Nesivos Olam Nesef Ad Yim Tov, chapter 1. Chazon Ish Koshen Mishpat Likutim, chapter 21, expresses the idea that states that the human mind has the ability to trigger a variety of natural phenomena that can cascade and eventually lead to the destruction of the even large-scale physical bodies. Others have suggested that the mechanism through which the evil eye operates is an ethical one. The blessings bestowed by God upon an individual should not serve as a source of anguish to others. If one allows his blessings, for example, wealth, children, etc., to cause pain to others less fortunate, and certainly if one flaunts his blessings, one arouses a divine judgment against himself and a reevaluation of his fitness for those blessings. This can lead to their eventual retraction. Michtav Me'Eliyahu, volume 3, page 313, volume 4, pages 5 and 6, Rav Avigdor Miller.
Do you guys want to look at this at the Kabbalah class next week about the evil eye, about protection from
Can
the
you just
evil eye?
explain what the evil eye is? That just men looking at naked women?
No. There's let me give you the exact.
It's like divine retribution when you draw attention to yourself.
So it's about yourself. It's not about perceiving others.
Right.
Okay. Why is that evil?
Well, because it's associated with misfortune.
There's a lot of different people, Islamic, Buddhists, Hindus, and other people. So a lot of them people have this ancient tradition that you can have a look at people, a hostile focus on someone, and you can bring them. It's sort of like, Scott, it's a little like voodoo, I think, in a way. Yeah, you can toy around with someone, and you can cause them problems. You can cause a lot of problems with someone by giving them a certain look. You ever had that, Sharon? See, don't give me that look. If looks can kill, right? You give someone a little look, you're creating a negativity. Like, I think the reason we use it in Judaism so much is that you don't want to show off. Like, if you say I'm bragging, you say, oh, I'm a multi-millionaire, then it's not good. You put it out there and people are going to get jealous. You're saying, hey, Steve Cohen, the owner of the Mets, I'm a billionaire. I have all these wonderful things about medicinal plants. Now then people might get a little jealous. You got a woman dressing to the T's like I grew up with in the synagogue, and people say, oh, you want to show off your looks. It's not going to be good. Therefore, you're going to have negative things happen to you because you're showing off and God doesn't want you to. Why do you think the whole thing comes with a woman covering their hair, covering their body, right? Look what the Muslims do, for God's sakes. It's like Scott, I think it's like a negative force in the universe that you can bring upon people.
Well, it's like kind of like they're discussing here. It's like a restorative force that if you get too far out of line, it's going to knock you back down to the level of everybody else. So you can't reach a higher level as a human being unless you can learn to take those gifts with humility.
But what if you want to dress to the hilts because you want to look good for yourself? Is that still considered that you're showing off? I mean, sometimes I'll just dress up because I want to feel good about myself and I want to look in the mirror and I want to like the person that I'm seeing. I'm not doing it because I want to go out in public and I want
Right.
men or women to look at me and say, oh, she's got beautiful
Look,
clothes.
look, it's more like what I see lately in Hollywood. It's like women wearing see-through tops and things like that, and you know, hot pants like I grew up with. It's like that type of thing, Sharon. I don't think if you want to get dressed up, it's bad. But you know what? The whole idea of covering ourselves, covering our hair. You know what? Because men, what was the whole reason for covering hair? So men that don't get turned on. What's the reason that we can't sit together in a synagogue for an Orthodox rule so men don't get turned on at women during services? There's always a factor where, you know, people can't control themselves, and
Well, and this goes like one step beyond the Kavanaugh, right? So your intent may not be to cause jealousy in somebody else by looking nice, or cause somebody else to behave in an untoward manner by your dressing nice. But you know, if you're going to serve food at a food kitchen and feed homeless people, and you go in wearing a diamond bracelet and, you know, go up in a Porsche, and it may not be your intention, because you're doing it so that you can feel good about yourself, but you're also not actively being considerate of those around you in the situation that they're in. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, no, the whole thing makes sense. It's just that,
It's an accounting beyond your Kavanaugh, beyond your intent.
it's a perception too. It's, and it's done, you know, I agree with you, you know, if you're gonna go to a soup kitchen, then you should really dress an appropriate dress for the people that you're going to be serving. I agree with you totally, but if I'm, let's say, going to synagogue, you know, and I'm going to an Orthodox synagogue, of course I'm going to dress appropriately to go to an Orthodox synagogue. I understand.
right.
But if, let's say I'm going to go shopping, and let's say I'm going to go shopping at a place like TJ Maxx or what used to be Caldor's or whatever, and I feel like dressing up for me, but I'm going to a store that people who may not be as fortunate as I might be to afford the clothes that I want to wear for me, am I producing the same effect by wearing those really nice clothes in a store that would attract people that probably would not be able to afford the clothes that I'm wearing? I mean, there's a
It's
fine
not.
line.
It's not there's not like a line. It's not a yes or a no. It's a spectrum. So you can be on one end of the spectrum where you are, you know, for lack of a better term, an untouchable, where nobody looks at you as any sort of, in fact, people just barely notice you, right? If they notice you at all, right? So there's that end of the spectrum, and then there's the other end of the spectrum. You're showing up in high heels and a diamond studded red dress and a Ferrari to go shop at Savers. You know, it's a spectrum. It's not like there's not a line to cross. It's, you know, how far are you pushing it, and how much attention are you bringing upon yourself, whether you're doing it intentionally or not.
You know what? I think we're gonna have to really. I think it's like a two-part session with our Kabbalah class with this. I think there's a lot of things to take into account about Ayin Hara and throughout history, and how it's affected people, and in actual cases with people. I mean, you can really, if you have a power and you're using it negatively. I mean, look what happened in last week's Torah portion. Look at Bilam. Bilam wanted to curse the people, but God wouldn't allow it. So we have to watch out what we're doing. But God, as I said this past week, God can always stop things from happening. So someone, you might be dressing beautifully and people are getting jealous and they want to harm you, but God could stop someone from actually harming you. But just so you know, throughout history, people have worn stuff like Thompson's. Very, very superstitious people throughout history have always worn things to protect them from negative forces in the universe. And just so you know, there are demons in this world. It's not just made up. There are shadim in this world. So it's not as if it's like a made up thing. There are negative forces in the universe. It's up to you to figure out how you're going to deal with them. Are you going to use prayer? Are you going to use some sort of protection? Like, what do you use, Scott? Use something for? I mean, I have on my bracelet, I have a Thompson one.
Yeah, I always go back to the beginning of Breshit, the statement, am I my brother's keeper? And, I think about that, and I think if I were standing next to somebody and I was not actively helping them, then I'm either being indifferent to them or I'm being destructive to them. If I'm not being helpful, I'm being either indifferent or destructive. And, that's where that spectrum comes in. So I try not to be indifferent. I try to be helpful and constructive to other people and make sure that my behaviors and my being conscious of the person next to me are what I use to ward off that sort of attention.
We could get into a whole big discussion.
I think we should have like a separate. This is fascinating. We should get back to the Talmud, but I'll entertain doing a 2 or 3 part series on Ein Yaakov, and because I think it's important for us really to protect ourselves. There are verses I can share with you how to protect yourself. You don't have to wear things, but I can give you passages that'll protect you from the Ein Yaakov without having to wear all these types of jewelry pieces. I can give you actual ways of dealing with it. So I think we're going to deal with it. Okay. So why don't we just defer it to a time when we get more people involved, like people that might be interested in the we'll advertise it, have Trudy involved, but she's not here right now.
Yeah.
People that are okay. So I'll look at starting maybe next week doing part 1 of the Ein Yaakov, because I guess it's here for a reason, right? And why is Joseph protected from it? It's just a very interesting thing. I think this whole thing of Aggadah, I think, you know what, we look at this stuff, but I think there's deeper meanings here, guys, and I don't know if we can find out. The only one who I knew in my lifetime that could uncover this was Rabbi Joel Baxton. Unfortunately, he died at 68 years old 2 years ago. So I can't even ask him. So anyway, he's the one that understood it. I don't know anyone else that would. So yeah. So unfortunately, I'll have
You
to
could
go.
ask him, but you might not get an answer.
You know what? It's a shame, Sharon.
So now that I think about it, there is one thing that I do, and it's because I know that this has like historically been a difficulty for me. I have just a single set of 4 strands of tzitzit, bound with a blue string, and I keep that visible in my truck, so that
That's good too.
when I'm driving that truck, it's always in my line of sight, whether I'm looking ahead or looking in the mirror, and it reminds me of what I should be doing.
I think that's good. That's the purpose of the tzitzit to begin with.
Yeah.
But I think I owe, as your rabbi, I think I really owe you to give you different ways to protect yourself. Because, I mean, we just pointed out, Scott, before about killings in Israel, in this country, 3 different cities this week. I mean, we have to find, I think I have an obligation to show you at least how to protect yourself. other than wearing a chamsa, I'm just saying there's other things too that could be done. If I have knowledge about it, what do you think, Sharon? If I have knowledge, I should be able to share it with you guys, right?
It would be wonderful. I think we should all share our knowledge and what we think about it.
Okay.
And
So for
listen to the people that are experienced in that and learn more.
okay,
I
so
think
for
you
next week-
should really advertise it though, because maybe other people that don't get on our calls might be interested in that.
Yeah,
Put it
yeah,
out in the
we'll-
weekly email.
we'll put it in the weekly. Yeah. Yeah, I'll send a note out to you. Yeah. Okay, so we'll go back to this since this is fascinating. This whole Aggadah section. I know we like studying law, but this Aggadah is really, really cool stuff. The Gemara now is going to record story of relationship with Yochanan and Reish Lakish. And it was before Reish Lakish rose to eminence. Yom Echad, one day, this is fine, it's funny. Ava kach tzake Rav Yochanan b'Yardena. Rav Yochanan was swimming. He happened to be swimming. It was a hot day. He was swimming in the Jordan River. Chazir Reish Lakish. Reish Lakish, who was then a highwayman, saw him. Shaval Yardana Abtere. And he jumped in the Jordan. He's jumping in the water after him. 17, Sarah.
He mistook him for a woman since he had no beard. Mitsudas David.
But don't forget, most men had beards back then, right? So if you're not wearing a beard, then you can be mistaken for someone else.
Mhm.
That makes sense. All men had beards. So if you had someone without a beard, you would say, hey, this maybe not be a man, because if everyone has a beard, like you're living in Jerusalem, say, and almost every guy there has a beard, then you look at someone there and you can't tell these days, is that a man or is that a woman?
Could have been a non-Jewish person.
Yes, could be, yeah. Amarle Atatrik. So Yochanan beheld the display of vitality, and said to him, all right, that your strength belongs to the Torah. All right, that remember is always or the root of light, Torah. Amarle, Reish Lakish said, Shur frach lenashe, your beauty belongs to women. Amarle, Yochanan said to him, Ihadarpach, if you repent your ways, Yehichachlak achoti, I'll give you, if you do well, I'm going to give you my sister in marriage. Achot, my achoti, my sister. Shapri Mina, who's more beautiful than even me. Oh, vain. Kabel Ale, Reish Lakish accepted this upon himself. By Lemahar La Tune Manya. Lakish then wanted to return to retrieve the clothes, the low matzah, but is unable to muster the strength to do so. 18, Sharon.
The Torah tends to weaken the physical strength of its students, Sanhedrin 26b. Here, even though Reish Lakish had not yet begun his studies, he had nevertheless accepted the yoke of Torah upon himself. This alone made him incapable of leaping as he had done before, according to Rashi.
Okay. He was an interesting man. We have to get into who he really was. It's very fascinating. Okay. Hadar Akronevat. Yochanan taught him scriptures and Mishnah. Don't forget, he didn't know anything. Yeshavya Gavra Rabba made him into a great man. So here we go. You take a simple guy who doesn't know much, and all of a sudden, Yochanan, who was one of the great scholars of the day, he taught him what we study, like scriptures and Mishnah, a much accelerated program. And you know what? And he made him into a great man, Gavra Rabba, great man. Narrative says, Yom Echad, one day, years later, they were disputing a point in the study hall. The Mishnah states,
The following list of utensils appears in Kalim 13, verse 1, see Rashi. In regard to the utensils' receptibility to Tumah when they become broken, Rav Yochanan and Reish Lakish, however, discussed a different point concerning these items.
Hasayef Esakin v'Heptigyon. sword and the knife and the hunting spear. Beharomach u'magel ya u'magel katzir. And the military spear and the hand sickle and the harvesting sickle. Me'ematai mekabelin tumah. From what point do they become tameh or impure? So when is it? Mishat gemar malachtan. It's from the time you completed the production. Me'ematai gemar malachtan. And when is this? Yochanan says, Mishishram kivshan. When the metal utensils are tempered in a kivshan, which is a furnace.
These objects reach the proper hardness by being successively heated and cooled. When this annealing process is finished, so is their production.
Okay, that's the process of it. Rish Lakish says this, Amar. Mishiktzakein b'mayim, when they're polished with water. 21.
Reish Lakish contends that since these metal utensils are weapons, their frightening appearance is central to their purpose. Thus, their production is not finished until they possess the glint that will strike fear into the hearts of future victims, according to Maharsha. Oh my God.
Okay. Amar le Yochanan said to Lakish, L'sidma v'lutuye yada, a thief knows his tools of the thievery. 22.
I must therefore bow to your expertise in this area. Rav Yochanan thus conceded that Reish Lakish was correct. Rabbeinu Hananel, Rav Yochanan meant no disparagement whatsoever of Reish Lakish. Maharsha Eitz Yosef. However, Reish Lakish mistook his words for a very personal insult.
How many times did that happen in life? So Amar le Lakish said to him, My ahanele, how have you benefited me? Hatam Rabbi Karoli. There among the thieves they called me Rabbi. I was their leader. Acha Rabbi Karoli. And here they call me Rabbi. 23.
Eitz Yosef maintains that Reish Lakish really meant to say, why have you aggrieved me? Ahanat, from the word honanah, Reish Lakish's response is then explained as follows. Why have you made reference to my earlier evil deeds, which are a source of embarrassment to me? If it is because you deem my repentance to have been insincere, then you must think my continued presence here in the Beit Medrash is due to the prestige I receive. This is not so. I used to receive the same honors from my band of thieves. If I am still here, then it must be that I have severed all connections with the past, and I am here for the Torah. Why then have you aggrieved me? Pardon, Tosafos. Unfortunately, Rav Yochanan understood Reish Lakish in this vein. What have you done for me? Ahanat, from the word hana'ah, I was a rabbi when you first met me, and I am a rabbi now. Nothing has changed. To Rav Yochanan's ears, Reish Lakish was belittling the importance of all his teachings and the Torah itself. Rav Yochanan was thus compelled to make the obvious rejoinder.
Amalei Yochanan said to Mahanila, I benefited you with a krave takakan peshrina, in that I brought you under the wings of the divine presence. Marcy 33. Halash dated Rav Yochanan. Yochanan became disheartened because of Reish Lakish's response. Halash Reish Lakish became seriously ill. Oh no, 24.
As divine retribution for having pained Rav Yochanan.
The lesson here, you better watch out when you're gonna you're painting someone that's on a great level. You better be careful. Atayafte. Rav Yochanan's sister was Reish Lakish. How do you like that? It was Reish Lakish's wife, Yochanan's sister, came before Yochanan. Kabakia. She cried and pleaded him to pray for Reish Lakish's recovery. Oh, it's my husband. Amrle, she said to him, Ase b'shul banai. Well, you can do it for the sake of my Banai, my children, prevent their great dad from dying. Amalei Yochanan said to her, this verse, 25. What verse?
Jeremiah 49:11.
And what does the verse say in this teaching? Azva Yotomech Ani Achaya. Leave your orphans, I will sustain them. Asi B'Shalom Ani. She said, act for the sake of my impending widowhood. Amalei said to her, Mo'atayach alai tiv tachu, and let your widows trust in me.
Ibid.
Again from the great prophet. Na nafshe Rav Shimon ben Lakish. Rav Shimon ben Lakish passed away. Ah,
Rev Yochanan was unwilling to forgive Reish Lakish this perceived offense because of its fundamentally destructive nature. If a student is disdainful of his rabbi, then he has removed himself from that rabbi's care and guidance. Indeed, he has therefore brought about his own end. As the Midrash says, the Jewish people without their elders is like a bird without wings. Thus, in a sense, the very existence of the nation was endangered by this act of contempt, and that was unforgivable.
Scott, does that make sense to you? That if someone, that taught you all this and was really watching over you, you disrespect them, then you deserve to die?
Where it's perceived as undoing an entire people, possibly.
Hmm.
It depends. I mean, Rav Yohanan was a great man, and it depends on, was there an audience around them when this was happening? Was it undermining Rav Yohanan in the eyes of others? Did Reish Lakish know that as the student, it was his duty to resolve the issue, even if it was just a misunderstanding?
I thought they were alone in the river. Wasn't this where they met in the river? Where he
This
jumped
is
in?
a later conversation. One day,
Yeah, we
many
don't-
years later,
Yeah, we don't know where it happened.
they were disputing the following point in the study hall. So, if they're in a place of learning and everybody's looking to Rav Yohanan, and it is a common misunderstanding, even if it wasn't meant the way it was received, then Reish Lakish should have figured out that, all right, we're going down the wrong path. People are losing faith, and it's time to reel this back in and make apologies and just take this one on the chin and move forward smartly. But instead, they continued to devolve down this path, and probably in front of everybody.
Well, I wonder if this might not have been the beginning of capital punishment, where Rav Yochanan was trying to teach, if there were other students around, trying to teach other students that there's a punishment for disrespecting and talking to a higher up in the manner that the student was talking. And so Reish Lakish was used as not an example, but as this is what can happen to you if you are not respecting of the higher ups. I don't know.
Yeah,
I think it's a
I
lesson.
imagine that they're both going to be made the example of. I think we have another paragraph to go, or another half a paragraph to go. I think more than Reish Lakish is going to get made the example of.
I think that people should watch it whenever you have someone who's a great sage. If you disagree with them, you shouldn't. I don't think you should embarrass anyone, or
Right.
if someone's like a Gadol Hador, and you say, well, I don't like it. I don't. If someone has all this knowledge in life, and someone, whether you like them or not, has all this knowledge and they're connected to God. We have a lot of people that do a lot of meditation, connect to God a lot. You have to be careful when you're dealing with people like that. You know what?
Mhm.
You can't make light of things. When it comes to Torah study, you can't make light of people. I think you have to respect those in authority, whether you like it or not. Someone's way above you. Like even my rabbi who I study with, I don't agree with everything he says, but I would never ever criticize him. Some people do, but I would never do it myself.
Yeah, it sounds like both of them should have known that it was better to have a closed door one-on-one conversation rather than start getting into it on the in the study hall in front of the other students.
Yeah, I think it's a lesson, Scott. If you have a battle with someone, do it privately. You shouldn't embarrass anyone publicly, even if you don't realize if there's a chance of it. You have to be careful what you say in front of other people. How many times have I seen that in the last year? People embarrassing people in front of people they didn't realize what they were saying, and then it causes a lot of agita. Okay,
It's part of the American way of life now.
right.
Monkey see, monkey do. People see this stuff on the television and they think it's what they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah. So let's see what happened. Vahava kamitzda Rav Yochanan Batre Tuva. Yochanan grieved after him considerably, Marcy. What happened here?
Where are we?
Note 28.
28.
28? Okay. He regretted causing Reish Lakish's death since there was no other conscientious disciple like him. Sorry. According
So
to Rashi.
he realized how great he was, and he said, oh my God, what have I done? He realized how wonderful a student he was, and now he's dead. So the rabbi said, who shall go to bring comfort to his mind? Nezel Rabbi Elazar ben Pedat. Rabbi Elazar ben Pedat should go Machadin Shmate. For why? Because he's also brilliant. 29.
Literally, his studies are sharp.
Azil Yativ Kame. Elazar went and sat before him. Told Milta Dahav Amar Rav Yochanan. Everything Rav Yochanan would say, Amarle. Elazar ben Paras told him, Tanya Demasyalach. You learn a prize that supports you. Amar, Rav Yochanan said to him eventually, Akfar Lakisha. You're supposed to be like Lakisha, Rish Lakish. Bar Lakisha, with Bar Lakisha, Yam Amina Milta. Whenever I would say something, Hava, Makshali Esron Ba'arba Kushyata. He would pose 24 difficulties for me. Ufarkinle Esrin Ba'arba Peruke. I give 24 solutions. And as a result, give and take, the subject became clear. However, you say, Tani Namasilach, we learn the price that supports you. Of what use is it? To already know what I have said. Well, Avakazi Avakaramani. Yochanan would go about and tear his clothes. The Kabbalah would cry and say this. Hecha at Bar Lakisha, Hecha at Bar Lakisha. Where are you, Bar Lakisha? Where are you, Bar Lakisha? Vahavakat Savat. He would scream, Adeshaf Dache, Mina, till his sanity wore away from him. Rabban Rachman Alei. Rabbis prayed for mercy on him. But not Nafshe. And Rav Yochanan passed away. Can you imagine that? 30, Marcy.
Why did the rabbis pray for his death and not his recovery? Because it would have been to no avail. The bond between Rav Yochanan and Reish Lakish was so strong that it was central to Rav Yochanan's very existence. Thus its severance was a mortal blow. Even had Rav Yochanan recovered, he would just have continued to pine after Reish Lakish and would very soon have lost his mind again. The rabbis thus had no choice but to pray for his passing.
By the way, this is a very famous piece of Talmud. People talk about this one a lot, by the way. So this one,
You
should we stop here? 84b1 as we continue. Yeah, fascinating, wasn't that, guys? We continue with the Aggadah. We could continue with the Aggadah and the evil eye.
Well,
Okay,
Alright. Let me go take over bathing the children and I'll send Deanne down.
okay.
okay.
Good seeing you.
8 o'clock, right?
8 o'clock.
Got it.
Hey, Sharon.
Hey,
Are you and Tom interested in if we go to Newport in August for a Shabbos morning service and then have lunch outside in Newport area? By
Yep.
Newport? Okay.
yeah, we can actually have lunch at the mooring,
Yeah, we can, yeah.
which is actually within walking distance.
Oh, okay, even better.
It's
That's
not that
exciting.
far from Truro.
Oh, yeah? Okay, that's good. That's good.
And they have a beautiful, so they have outdoor dining, and they also have a beautiful porch.
At the
And it's
mooring?
right on the wharf. It's
Yeah,
right on the
'cause
harbor.
Because if we park to go to Truro, yeah, we can walk to lunch or whatever, and then
Yeah,
decide.
there's also the Red Parrot that you can walk to.
Oh, okay.
And they both have really good food. The Red Parrot, I don't think has outdoor dining because it's upstairs.
I didn't see the Red Parrot had outdoor.
It's right at the head of Thames Street.
Yeah. Okay, well, we'll decide when we get a bunch of people ready to go for that trip. Well, I'm excited about the Ayin Hara. I was going to do next week about angels and when you go to sleep, but I think I'm more interested, since we're reading this about Ayin Hara, to get more protection for us in our world. You know, we've lost a lot of key people, well, at least in my world, in the 68-year-old case of Karen Gambalati, Fran Hershkowitz, and Sharona. So anyway, we lost 3 people in the last 9 months at 68 years old. So got to find a way to protect ourselves. It's the average age. That's 11 years younger than the average age for a woman to live in this country. So anyway,
Lost Mark
Mark, yeah.
Nagels. You knew him.
How old was Mark exactly?
61.
Mark was 61.
Yeah. And
Okay.
good as gold. Good as gold.
Yeah, I remember working with, Mark, yeah. For your bat mitzvah, yeah. So, this week's portion of Pinchas, it's very fascinating because it describes an unusual incident that seems to contradict much of Jewish ideals. Up until now, the reading of this Torah portion, the Torah has praised love of fellow men, right? Righteousness, resolving disputes. Yet, there's an episode we read on Saturday where Pinchas, he's a minor player, let's say, in the history and the hierarchy of Israel, seemingly takes the law in his own hands. He kills one of the leaders in an act of zealousy, and instead of being rebuked, God elevates him. Not only that, but he's given the blessing of peace, Shalom. What's peaceful about what he did? The slayee had done some bad things, and you know what? It's not good, as we talked about before, flaunting things in public. But does that really mean that someone deserves to be killed? It seems to violate the standard of the Torah that if a person deserves the death penalty, then you need a court case. Remember, in Jewish law, you need witnesses, right? You make it very difficult for that. And then what happens? And then it's meted out with the proper supervision of a court. Nowhere do we see the idea of vigilantism or personal justice like this in the Torah. So what's the story of our destiny? The story of Pinchas teaches us something about the Jewish idea of our destiny. Every human being, we're all designed by God. We all have, right, character traits. We have talents, some more than others. We have surroundings that help mold us as people. Although it's a free country, we really should examine ourselves. We have to look at it carefully to see if God had anything particularly in mind when he created us. What pursuits do I enjoy? What talents did God give me? Many people feel that God set them up in a position to fulfill a certain role or a certain profession. Dental hygienist, professor, engineer, tax assessor. Nothing is by accident. It says in the Talmud, in the place where there are no men to strive to be a man. This means that if you're in a situation where something needs to be done and no one can do it, you have to do it yourself. Now, certainly that doesn't mean we should always wait around and leave what needs to be done to others, and only if no one's taking care of it do we jump in. It's possible to suggest in life that we listen to what the sages say, is that if you're in a situation, it's not an accident usually. You might just be fulfilling the unique role that you were given the tools for. In Pinchas this week, it was the right time, and they say the right place, and he stepped forward to meet the needs of the movement and the needs of the moment. Life is meant to indulge and include challenges, but there's also different grooves at the time. And the grooves are placed in front of us, and they're sometimes meant that we should fit in with it. Sometimes things work out perfectly in life. Sometimes it's the calm before the storm. Or what happens? A time to gather your resources for the next battle. Sometimes it's a pure gift of kindness from God. In spiritual terms, this is a famous song, life is a battlefield. You can't wear out your soldiers in war. You have to give food and rest in order for them to be their best. So too in the upper realms of heaven. They devise areas of our lives to run smoothly, or time periods when we are not tested to our limits. This is expressed in a verse that's reported many times in Kabbalah. The holy living angels ran and returned. What is that? We all have ups and downs, fluctuations in our growth. This is healthy and natural. Often we feel that if only this certain problem would go away, then we'd be able to really address our lives and grow. Could be a mistake. If you're experiencing a particular challenge, it could be maybe God designed it for your growth. After Jacob finished a difficult period with the evil Laban, and after he met Esau wanted to kill him, he felt he had completed his test. Now he's ready to devote himself to spiritually, character growth, and Torah study. That's when his favorite son Joseph, what happened then? Got taken away to a foreign land. Jacob was thrown into emotional turmoil. He wanted rest, but instead he got turmoil. So to wrap it up, we don't know what's best for us at all times. We need to constantly roll with the punches and let God, our Father in heaven, decide what the situations are best for our spiritual growth. What's God giving us as a challenge? You can certainly try to put yourself into places that are conducive to the growth you want, but you always need to be willing to adapt to a different environment if that's where you are led. That just might be the challenge that fits your soul's needs better. So here's what we want to do this week. Think about two things that are going well. Figure out why are they going so well. Think about two challenges not going so well. You're encountering them. And why are you having those challenges? Dan, do you believe that it's a challenge for you to convert to Judaism? It's a big challenge that God gave you, a big challenge in life to try to analyze your life, try to figure out if you and Scott want to raise a Jewish family, from being a Christian family to be a Jewish family. Was that a challenge, or was that tough for you, or it's just something that was sort of always in the cards?
No, I think there was definitely a challenge about it. Because when I first met Scott, he wasn't very religious that I saw. He believed in God. We had some conversations about it, but he was very in touch with him when he was out doing his own thing. So we didn't have like a lot of interaction between the two of us or discussions between the two of us surrounding it. So when we first started dating, there was a lot of questions as to whether or not he felt the same way about God as I did. And he was going to want to learn and have a closer relationship. And he did a lot of this searching, especially into Judaism, and he never discussed any of it with me. He was just doing it on his own. And I remember praying to God and saying, I think this is the person that you have in mind for me. But I need to know that we're going to be able to do this together, and that's a part of my life. That's a part of who I am. I think that's part of who he is. I don't know how it's all going to come together. And then he had told me he was reading this, and it wasn't something that I had planned. You know what I mean? I was kind of like, oh, all right, I'm a Christian. I haven't really found where I felt comfortable in a community, and I didn't feel like I was really learning a whole bunch more. I wasn't getting closer to God. You know what I mean? Like here I am at this somewhat adult stage, and I know God, but I'm not really doing anything more. I'm not learning. I'm not growing. I'm just kind of there. And he brought this up, and then he started taking the classes, and I would listen, and the stuff that he was hearing and you guys were discussing in classes was also affecting me. And I was like, I'm learning, and I don't realize that I'm learning. So that was one of the challenges of like, maybe this is an avenue that God has put forth, right? And there's a little bit of a conflict because you're brought up one way and you're like, well, what was wrong with the other way? And then you start seeing where there are differences in beliefs, and you're like, wait a minute, I never really thought about it that way before. Because when you're young, a lot of times you just take what you're taught as what it is, and then as it's your job when you get older to kind of look into those things, right? So I think it was a challenge to kind of question that stuff, but I try not to question when it feels right. I try not to question it that much and go with it. And if it continues to feel right and I continue to feel like I'm growing, I mean, and I can't deny that. I feel like I've grown. I feel like I've seen my husband grow. I feel like we've grown even closer together as a family. So, I mean, I can't challenge all that stuff. I can't question that. It's right. So does that make sense?
It seems like you and Scott always had Jewish souls, it seems to me. Because the way you guys approach conversion, not everyone does it that way, you know. Some people do it for the sake of a spouse, whatever. They just go through the motions. But you and Scott really serious. It seems like, to me at least, that you might have had some sort of spark of a Jewish soul before that sort of being ignited. You ever feel that way?
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, it was funny that the beginning, very early in our relationship, he talked to me about the idea of our relationship not being where you have to give up something for one another and you have to keep it even, like, okay, I'm going to give up this, and then later on you'll give something else up. It was more of a life of confluence where we were literally going to come together, and it would no longer be his life or my life. It would only be ours. And that is the way that we have built our relationship. And so that's how we also approach our family. So it's always going to be our family, and we've made God a huge portion of that. He's like at the point of it. So that's the way they were going to go.
Well, it seems like challenging that you have 3 kids in the process as well.
I think there are points where it was very there are points when it's very like pull your hair out challenging, but then there's so many other points that are just heartwarming and moving, just incredibly moving, and you're like, yep, this is the way it was supposed to be. I'm doing all right. I'm hanging in there. I think we're doing
Yeah, but it seems like you find time for study, though. Having 3 kids in a house is not easy. I mean, it's very
No.
demanding.
I'll tell you, I had this bright idea at the beginning of the week when it was sunny, or maybe this was late last week. Either way, it was supposed to be a sunny day, and then we were supposed to have some rainy days. And I was like, I'm going to take the kids to the park. I got us packed. I packed a lunch. We were going to go to the park. The kids were going to play on the playground, and I had my earbuds, so I was going to listen to the Jewish literacy, and it went completely wrong. Like, I thought I was going to get like 2 hours of like, yeah, my time for Jewish literacy. And I had my notebook to make all my notes and stuff. And they were just like, Mom, come watch me on the side. Mom, Xander needs help doing this. Mom, I want a snack now. And I was like, this is not gonna work. I can't absorb this information if I'm continuously stopping and trying. So it was funny. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. And then I usually just have a conversation with God afterwards, and I say, I'm really sorry. I tried to make that work, and maybe it was the wrong time. Maybe you didn't want me to do it then, but I'm just trying to find the right times. Because if I can't do it when my brain's in it, I won't do it. I'll get angry.
And the challenge with Marcy and Sharon is you have a non-Jewish spouse and you want to retain your Judaism, and sometimes the spouse doesn't allow it. Sometimes they say, I know Gary was very supportive of Marcy. He doesn't necessarily have to go to synagogue all the time, but Tom certainly does. Tom was one of my first Hebrew students. Remember Sharon back in 1995? He seemed to want to support you. I mean, you didn't know if that could have been a big challenge, Sharon. He could have said, I don't want to support you in this. I'm going my own way. I have a brother who's a minister, for God's sakes.
It's interesting that you say that, because when Tom and I first married, we were in our 30s, and it really didn't matter to me that he was going to stay in his religion. And he was and always has been very supportive of my love for Judaism. But now that I'm in my 70s, I find that I wish he wanted to convert, because he doesn't, for decades, not decades, maybe for 10 years, since he retired, it seems like he's not interested in his congregationalism. He doesn't go to church. His mom stopped going to church about 10 years ago. And he attends all the Jewish functions. And I said to him, this could be a path that we can both do together. If you were to convert to Judaism, you do it, all the stuff in Judaism anyway, but he has no interest. And it kind of hurts me. I wrote in Scott. Yeah, it hurts me that he doesn't want to. He's already engaging. It's not like he removes himself and doesn't attend synagogue. I didn't know Marcy's late husband, but Tom goes to everything. And to me, it didn't seem like a huge request to make that last step.
Yeah.
Take the journey with me as I'm continuing on my path. So we've had some issues about that.
Do you ever had issues when you talk about God?
Here we are, 3 different women with very different pathways. Each of our significant others, and ending up in the same class.
Yes. I know, but Marcy's husband was involved in the church. Sharon,
He
Tom
was really involved in
Yeah,
his church
yeah.
up till the
Tom's
end.
not. And Tom's
So,
not.
yeah, I mean, he was,
Different circumstances, very different.
right. So, yeah, I mean, he was the grandson of a minister. His parents were pretty involved in the church. So I'm like, you know what? It made him who he was. He wasn't trying to make me convert to anything. I wasn't going to make him convert to anything. So,
And you know, if Tom were involved in his church, I mean, the only person involved in his family was his mother. His father was not, his father was Catholic, but didn't do anything with religion. I mean, he didn't join his mother at church or anything. And his brother is a retired minister. But Tom, for as long as we've been married, he never attended church other than going with his mom every few Sundays or something, or going to the Christmas service or Easter. I mean, but that was it. It's not like he's been involved. So I don't know. We just,
I remember Scott had a conversation with me too at the beginning of his conversion, where we discussed a little bit about the struggles that sometimes interfaith marriages have. And because I think one of the things is because he did it so early on, and it's not an easy conversation to have either. It's a very awkward conversation, but it made me want to do the work to see where the big differences were for me in my relationship with God. And I sat down with one of my Bibles from when I was a little kid, and I started reading Genesis while I was listening to the Torah. And it's the same. So much is the same. And I'm like, it's not like we're talking like these like apples and shoes. It's very much the same. And I was like, so that was one of the things that really made it a lot easier to say, there's no reason to question this or to go down the path. Because I think if I was younger, I would have had, like, you kind of get this fear inbred in you, like, oh, this is a whole different religion. Wait a minute, you could be going down a real deep, dark path. But I was like, it's all the same stuff that was learned when I was growing up. And like, when I go to Sunday school, they ask you the questions and then you repeat the stories and you talk about all the people and the morals behind it. And I'm like, and that's how I learned a lot of the morals that I got when I was growing up, because I know these stories and we talked about what happened and what you're supposed to learn from them. And I'm like, so it wasn't as difficult to sit there and question once you started going through and you're like, it's the same stuff. But again, I think because he brought up the discussion at the very beginning and said, you know, I don't think we want to be a household of two different faiths where one person's only going to ever talk about this and another person. And then also how do we raise the kids, right? How do we have that conversation? Right. And that's one of the things that, you know, aside from religion, we try and very often make sure we're on the same path with what we're doing, like showing them what to eat, showing them how to behave, and so on and so forth. So it fits very well into how we handle things. But again, that early on conversation, and then just being willing to take a look and then realizing it's not that different. Yeah. It's not scary. It's not big bad taboo and that kind of stuff. So
can I ask a question? How does your family react to it?
My mom is funny. She said she's already picked out her Jewish name. And I said, are you converting? And she goes, no, but I've had the name that I've wanted to.
Oh, that's funny.
But that's my mom. She there's 12 steps before she's done the first 2. So she's got interests, and I think that she's very open-minded and welcoming to it. She listens to a lot of the stuff. She's been to the she's actually been online in the service before. She really wants to be able to come to the Tuesday night classes too, but depending on what her work schedule is. But and then my dad, he's a Christian and he still attends church. He's still very active in his church. And he never once had any question about it. He was like, that's great. And he actually, he was telling us stories about when he was in college, he had met some Jewish kids in college, a roommate, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And he said the Shema, and I was like, what, you know the Shema? Great at his house. Like, I had no idea. And so every time he comes over, he always has some new random weird thing that he's found. And so we bought him, what was it? The
Chumash.
The
but
Chumash.
Five separate books instead of the one combined.
Yeah.
Oh,
So he was really, really thankful for that. He's like, this is great. I need to read these because this would be really nice. And he's actually had some personal issues and feelings at his particular church that he's at now with the pastor who's there. So it gives him another avenue of learning from God, you know, talking with God and learning from God. And I think he appreciates that when he can't get it from where he might be wanting to get it from. So.
well,
Sharon, I'm wondering, do you think Tom, because of his stage in life, doesn't want to deal with it?
Yeah. I think that he's just not into religion.
Well, and maybe if he was younger, say, you know what I mean?
No.
maybe not, Sharon.
His mother was a very, very deep influence on him. And his
Okay.
mother was a church-going woman, Columbia
Right.
Congregational Church. She was a real pillar. His grandfather was a pillar of society.
Mhm.
And
So,
so
yeah,
Okay,
maybe
okay.
that's
Maybe.
why. Yeah.
deeply
Okay.
ingrained in him. But you know, when Tom and I got married, I had to keep my ketubah a secret from his father because his father didn't approve me. He wasn't approving of me because I'm Jewish. And so it was tough the first year. I literally kept my ketubah in a drawer because my in-laws would visit. And I was afraid that if my father-in-law saw the ketubah.
Oh, really, Sharon? I didn't know you had to do anything.
Oh yeah, we've gone through some really rough stuff. I actually, there was one day where I just stood up for myself and looked his father in the eyes and said, I'm Jewish and I'm proud of it. And if you don't like it, you're just going to have to get over it. And Tom and I had already been married 10 years at that point.
So
Really?
think of how much that was bottled up inside you.
Oh, I question myself every single day as to why we got married. I do.
Really?
Because I had always wanted a Jewish husband. Always. Not because my parents wanted me to have a Jewish husband, but because I had always wanted a Jewish husband. But Tom and I found one another. And I cannot say that he hasn't supported me every moment when I was keeping kosher, strictly kosher. I mean, I still keep kosher, but not to the extent that I used to when I was in my mobile home. And
Really?
one day I took out the wrong knife. I took out a fleischer knife instead of a milker. And I went to cut cheese with it. I wasn't even thinking. And Tom says, you can't use that knife. So it was, you know, he really and truly has supported me.
So
But-
Marcy, were you allowed to have like a mezuzah on your door and
Oh,
stuff?
we have them, yes. Oh, yes. He
And you
didn't
too,
really
Sharon.
restrict anything.
Okay.
as a matter of fact, I was married to a Jewish guy first,
Yeah.
yeah.
and he was ridiculous. I mean, yeah. Where Gary was much more respectful of the religion, I thought.
Isn't that amazing, guys? Jewish guy's not respectful, but a Christian
I
guy.
remember we went to, he took me to some carnival thing, like a big fair, the night of Yom Kippur, right? That night before.
Kol Nidre?
Yeah,
Your Jewish
Yeah.
husband? did
my
that?
Jewish husband. Yes.
Well,
Wow.
that shows
But
something.
you know what?
yeah.
They're out there. I mean, my
Mhm.
brother is a non-practicing Jew. Totally. He's agnostic,
Oh, your brother, yeah.
married.
Isn't
But
it, isn't it amazing how much damage and distress can be caused by just a little ignorance?
my nephew had a bar mitzvah. And my sister-in-law, who is Catholic and never converted, but with them, it was okay because my brother was a non-practicing Jew. But my sister-in-law wanted my nephew to grow up Jewish. So he's Jewish.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
How old is he now?
He's 31.
31. Wow. Wow. But anyway, I'm glad we had a class tonight. It's nice since it's raining out and I wasn't going to any fireworks. It's on TV.
Thank you, everybody, for
It's on
listening.
30 minutes on TV. So, but the weather didn't cooperate. But I'm glad we had a class. I'm glad we had, the 5 of you on here tonight. And we're gonna continue next week. Our theme is going to be Ayin Hara. What can we do? What exactly is it from all different perspectives? And what can we do to protect ourselves other than wearing a kamsa, which we all know that other religions do to protect against the Ayin Hara, the evil eye, whatever they call it in different religions. 4 different religions have it too in their folklore.
Tom and I are going to be on vacation next week, but I am going to bring my iPad. So if we do have Wi-Fi and I can zoom in, I will.
Okay. If you're away next week, we're gonna record it, right, Scott? It'll be recorded. So.
That would be great. Thank you.
I'm back on track for getting the recordings uploaded, so
Yeah,
Are you
Sharon.
uploading them to the cloud?
YouTube.
To YouTube. Okay.
So the link is on the weekly. So you can access it. If you can't make it next week, you can always access it. Same thing, Marcy can't go to the show tunes. Tammy and I are gonna work on it now.
Yeah, they're doing a miniature golf night. Gary's Lodge of Masons. They're doing a memorial miniature golf thing because when he was the master of the lodge, he tried to do family things. So like we would do ice cream nights and he did a mini golf thing. And that's what they're doing in his memory.
But we'll record it. So Scott, thank God you can record it. So if you miss a class, Sharon, and you're interested in hearing about the Ayin Hara, you can access it. If Marcy wants to hear the show tunes or the service, it'll be accessible. Okay, everyone, I got to work with Tammy on the Friday night program. Everyone. So have a good night. Happy 4th, everyone. Great
Happy
seeing
4th.
Everyone.
Happy
you.
4th.
Good night.
All right.
Good night.